Hey everybody, welcome back to the Be Yourself Unapologetically podcast. Today we're going to be talking about emotionally unstable personality disorder. The good bits, the bad bits, and the beautiful bits. You know, sometimes people think that having a mental health condition means your life has to be chaotic, broken, or hard forever. But the truth is, it doesn't. You can have something like emotionally unstable personality disorder, or Eupd, and still live a happy, peaceful, and fulfilling life. You can learn, grow, and even find beauty in the way you feel things so deeply. Today, I want to talk about what Eupd really is: the good, the bad, and yes, the sometimes ugly side, but also the hope, because there is hope. And I want anyone listening who might be struggling or loving someone who is to know you are not your diagnosis. You are not broken. You are human. And your emotions, even the big ones, don't make you weak. They make you real. Let's start with what Eupd actually is. Emotionally unstable personality disorder, or borderline personality disorder, as it's also known. It's a condition that affects how a person feels about themselves, how they relate to others, and how they handle emotions. It's called emotionally unstable, not because people with it are dangerous or unpredictable, but because their emotions can change quickly and intensely. It's like living life with the volume turned all the way up. Where other people might feel sadness at a 5 out of 10, someone with Eupd can feel it at 15. Love, anger, fear, joy, all of it is amplified. And that can be exhausting, but it can also be extraordinary. Because here's the thing: people with Eupd feel everything deeply. They love hard. They care fearlessly. They have empathy that runs to the bone. They see beauty in places others might overlook, and they often have this creative spark, this ability to express emotions in ways that touch others. Many incredible artists, writers, musicians, and advocates have lived with Eupd. They've taken the intensity of their emotions and turned it into art, into passion, and into purpose. That's the good side: the sensitivity, the emotional honesty, the ability to connect deeply with others. It's powerful. But of course, like anything that burns bright, there's another side too. Let's talk about the bad side. Not to shame it, but to understand it. Because when you understand something, it stops being a monster in the dark. People with Eupd often struggle with fear of abandonment. It's not about being needy or dramatic. It's about an overwhelming terror of being left alone. That fear can come from early experiences, feeling rejected, unseen, or emotionally unsafe as a child. And so as an adult, every time someone pulls away or doesn't reply or seems different, that deep wound wakes up and screams, "You're going to be left again." And in that moment, logic doesn't stand a chance. That's when emotions can take over. But it's not manipulation, it's panic, and it's survival mode. Then there's the struggle with identity. Many people with Eupd describe feeling like they don't really know who they are. They might change their opinions, style, or even their goals often, not because they're pretending, but because they genuinely feel different from moment to moment. They're searching for solid ground in a world that feels constantly shifting. And then, of course, there are the mood swings, the emotional highs and lows that can come and go like storms. One minute you're on top of the world, the next you're questioning everything, and it can feel like you're constantly fighting to stay steady. The ugly side, and I use that word gently, is when those feelings boil over, when anger becomes explosive, when sadness becomes despair, when someone with EUPD might say or do things in the heat of emotion that they later regret. It's not because they're bad, it's because the emotion in that moment feels unbearable, and often the pain underneath it all isn't seen by others. But I want to be very clear, this ugly side is not who a person is. It's a symptom, a reaction, not a reflection of their heart, and with support, therapy, and self-awareness, that storm can calm. Let's talk about that support, because there is treatment, there is help, and it works. The most well-known approach is called dialectical behavioural therapy, DBT for short. It was actually created specifically for EUPD, and what it does is teach people emotional regulation, mindfulness, distress tolerance, and relationship skills. In other words, it teaches balance. It helps people learn how to feel emotions without being controlled by them. Therapy, medication in some cases, and building a strong support system can completely change a person's life. I've seen people who once thought they'd never have peace find it. I've seen them learn how to pause before reacting, how to soothe themselves, how to communicate without fear. Healing is not quick, but it is absolutely possible. Now let's shift to something people don't talk about enough, the good that lives inside this diagnosis. People with EUPD are some of the most emotionally intelligent, intuitive and caring people you'll ever meet. They can read a room, sense pain and offer compassion in a way that feels almost magical. They're often the friends who show up at 2 a.m, who listen without judgment, who love you like family. They feel everything, but that includes your joy, your sadness, your story. Yes, their empathy can make life heavy at times, but it also gives them a depth that others might never know. When they learn how to balance it, when they find healthy ways to ground and care for themselves, that same emotional intensity becomes a superpower. They can love with passion, create with purpose, and feel with meaning. Now let's talk about relationships, because this is where EUPD often plays out the loudest. Relationships can be tricky, because that fear of being left can lead to pushing people away or clinging too tightly. It's the heartbreaking cycle of "don't leave me" mixed with "I'm terrified you will." But with awareness and honesty, relationships can absolutely thrive. Healthy communication helps. Learning to say, "I'm feeling triggered right now," or "I need reassurance," instead of reacting from fear. And having partners, friends or family who understand EUPD, who don't take those reactions personally, makes all the difference. If you love someone with EUPD, remember this: they're not trying to hurt you, they're scared of losing you. They don't need fixing, they need patience, safety and consistency. And if you are someone with EUPD, please know you are worthy of love that doesn't walk away. You deserve relationships where you can be honest about your feelings and still be accepted. You don't have to pretend to be fine all the time. You are not too much, You are not unlovable. You are simply someone who feels deeply in a world that doesn't always know how to handle depth. Now let's talk about living happily with EUPD, because it's not just about surviving, it's about thriving. Happiness for someone with EUPD often looks different. It's found in peace, in small routines, in self-understanding, learning to pause before reacting, taking time to breathe, writing things down before saying them out loud, having a list of grounding techniques like walking outside, holding something cold, deep breathing, or journaling. It's also about accepting that not every day will be perfect, and that's okay. Healing isn't linear. Some days emotions will still feel heavy, but they don't last forever anymore. You start to trust that the storm will pass, and that's where peace begins. And slowly life becomes lighter. You start noticing progress in small ways. You pause before sending that angry text. You choose to walk away instead of exploding. You soothe yourself instead of waiting for someone else to fix it. And one day you realize you've grown, you've healed, and you've built a life that feels steady even when your emotions don't. To anyone listening who's struggling right now, please know it's not hopeless. You can absolutely live a beautiful, joyful life with EUPD. It's not a life sentence, it's an invitation to learn emotional balance, to grow and to see the world in all its colours. And yes, it's hard sometimes, but it's also full of potential, compassion and beauty, because when you learn to manage your emotions instead of being ruled by them, that depth becomes your strength. You learn boundaries, you learn forgiveness, you learn patience, and through it all, you discover who you truly are. Not the unstable version the world labels you as, not the broken version that shame tells you you are, but the strong, passionate, empathetic, healing person underneath. So if you're living with emotionally unstable personality disorder, this is your reminder. You are not your diagnosis. You are not your mistakes. You are not too emotional. You are beautifully sensitive in a world that often rewards numbness. And that sensitivity, when you learn to handle it with care, becomes your greatest gift. You can love, laugh, work, dream, build relationships, raise families, and change lives with EUPD. You just have to learn to anchor yourself before the waves come. And remember that every storm, no matter how strong, always passes. So here's to the good, the bad, and even the ugly sides of emotional sensitivity, because every part of you deserves compassion. And here's to the hope that even with emotionally unstable personality disorder, you can live not just a manageable life, but a meaningful one. Because you are capable, you are resilient, and you are worthy of peace.